Meeting to order. Kathleen Dougherty was notified that she would not be here this evening. Scott Badger. Dick Bennett. Bessie Hardy. And Huntley Howe. You are a voting member this evening.
Oh, tonight.
We told you you'd get your chance.
Yeah, I guess so. I was hoping to wait a year.
Well, we are voting on the minutes, so if you will please review them, and if you haven't already reviewed them,
Have you been voting with somebody else again?
It turns out that when I type the letter H and T on my computer, it sends agony up my... I think it's because of gardening, but I didn't notice it until I was typing... Yes, and typing the word housing.
I'll teach you the point. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're going to catch up on the schedule. Public comment on any matter not before the planning board this evening. I think we're good on that. All right. That brings us to our second item on the agenda, that we have a discussion with Richard Levine about Dana Place subdivision.
Correct.
So if you'd like to get started.
Okay, I'm here on two matters. The first matter is the lot on One Whipple up in the Dana Place subdivision. I have it under contract, subject to it still being buildable as to the original declaration and recorded plot plan at the registry of deeds from 1972 or 73, I'm not sure. Within that declaration, it states that 4 cluster-style condos can be built on that lot, and I'm here to make sure it's still acceptable to the town to do that.
How large is the lot?
About 0.8 acres.
So it would be non-conforming at this time. Do you have a septic plan that would be...
The septic, I don't have a septic plan. I intend to create an easement because it abuts the Dana Place. I intend to create an easement for septic and water from the Dana Place, and I'll just connect to the Dana Place's system.
I'm sorry.
We have plenty of capacity.
When you say connects to the Dana Place, could you explain that?
The land abuts the Dana Place.
Dana Place.
Place in land.
Excuse me.
I'm Jim Lukowitz. I'm Jim Lukowitz.
Okay, just a point of order, please. This is a public meeting, but if you have a question or comment, I'd appreciate it if you would address the chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Of course. I
And I'd
apologize.
be happy to give you time to
Not a problem.
to talk. That's fine, but
No.
please, if we could do that, just have that
I will certainly do that.
standard of decorum, and so we keep everything kind of,
Keep the peace.
well, keep order. We have a procedure that we need to maintain.
I apologize.
Thank you.
So the land does abut the Dana Place Inn. And so I just give an easement and connect it to the existing well system that's there, and the existing septic system. We have plenty of capacity. And if we don't have, for some reason, we don't have the capacity, we're going to build our 10 other units, our 2 5-plexes that were approved sometime in the next 6 to 12 months. And if we have to put a system in, I think we have to put a system in for those. So we'll make sure we have the density. We'll make sure that we can connect this lot to it.
Did you ever get an answer to your email?
I did forward a copy to you.
Maybe it came
Yeah,
in.
you may have got it. Betsy, did you see it?
Yes, I did, and I have actually a copy here if you want to pass it over or circulate it around. So it's interesting just to bring out when a planning board member wants to circulate information or ask questions or whatever, it's important that it be brought out at a meeting so that it's clear that there wasn't any, on the side decision making or whatever made. And so I'll circulate this because I wasn't certain of procedures, what happens when an approval had happened long ago and never was constructed, what is actually necessary, what's required by state regulations. So we got in touch with the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and they responded with this, which we can circulate around.
We just received that this afternoon. Yes, sir.
I want to be consistent with your comment. So what was the response with something that was approved many years ago with now?
So basically, the approval still stands unless there's been some change to the zoning in the interim. And of course there has been. I don't know, I think the planning board was established in 1972 or something or other, and then disbanded maybe in 73. I'm not exactly sure of the dates, and then refounded in 74. And I think these original documents may have stemmed from 72. But even up through the 80s and 90s, we were working on a system where I think it was basically 2-acre zoning, and now we're using a soils-based zoning. So things have changed, and it would be important to make sure that whatever is constructed, as I understand it, would comply with today's regulations.
Would comply with today's regulations.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, the approval stands, but it also requires that any changes, if I understand the reading of that correctly, is that any changes that are made to the zoning regulations, and we have had changes to zoning regulations, as for example, I think as Betsy's mentioned, regarding how we deal with septic and what the requirements are for that. And that one particular would be a for sure item to which, even though it's still approved, the requirement would be that you meet the new zoning regulations for the septic. And if that happens, it should be okay.
And as I understand it, the town allows easements on septic.
Allows, but I don't think if it was a new subdivision.
Well, this is what
I understand. If it was a new, if you were bringing a subdivision to us today, I don't think you could use an easement in place of insufficient
Density.
Is that correct? I'm sort of asking, but that would be my assumption. The letter does say, sort of, either if grandfathered or if there have been no relevant changes. And so a question would be, and that's always been a question in Jackson, is what is grandfathered? What is...
Do you have the wording of the deed of the...
I have the deed of the piece of property itself. Yeah, I have a deed. I have a copy of it. By all means, have it.
Which deed are you talking about?
I'm not sure. You're asking about the deed, not my deed, because I haven't purchased it yet, but the deed that actually Pink & Notch Corporation, which was the developer, deeded to Mr. Daniel Wodleski and Carol Wood, I think it is.
So this is a copy of the deed for 2000?
In 2000 they bought it.
Okay, so here's one copy.
That's exactly what I have.
Great.
That's exactly.
So why don't you circulate that for more people to read?
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
sure.
is better for me.
Thanks.
I don't have to have my magnifying glass out. And this states the, what did you say, 4 units?
It states, again, I just gave you my copy, but it,
Yeah, okay.
within your declaration, within the Dana Place Certificate of Declaration and Declaration of Dedication of Open Space, this is considered Tract G, Cluster 1.
Here's another copy to circulate.
I'm going to give you deeds also. This is, if you want, this is their certificate of declaration on the original subdivision, and it does state out that this is tract G. I also have a copy of the plan for you that I can give you.
You know, Richard, that's confusing to us. You say G, and I'm seeing A, and so on.
This is in the plan. I don't have it.
How do we?
No, this is G.
Okay.
Chair recognizes.
Not to put words in your mouth, but did you just say that whenever new construction happens, it has to comply with the, it's your opinion that has to comply with the current zoning?
It's the opinion of the state. Under the state that it's required.
Unless grandfathered, that would be.
And it's not grandfathered according to the opinion of the state.
Right. As I understand the opinion of the state, he was saying that if the construction had already happened, that would mean it was grandfathered. Is that?
But if the construction did not occur in the time that was set for the, which apparently for this, it was within 2 years of the application and approval, that it would not be grandfathered. So the point is that it's still allowed, in other words, the subdivision is accepted, but the subdivision must be subject to any zoning changes that have occurred since the time the application and approval was made. That's what I understand from the state's opinion that we received today. So I think to answer your question, it's not grandfathered, if you will, except to the extent that it is allowed if it can meet these requirements that we have currently.
Is that including lot size?
I think more to the point would be the offset from the river.
Yeah, that's not a problem, because here, the people that do own it, were thinking about doing a single family on it, and they actually spent money and had it perked and drew a separate design for a single family on it, and they had, can I give you this?
Yeah, absolutely.
They actually had Insusic Survey do the work on it, and they brought in, you can see all the work they've done. They've showed the 100-foot setback from the Ellis River. There's also the 75-foot, 100-year flood boundary, and then here is the 75-foot.
Yep.
So the building envelope, is in this area. You're not building out here at all. Here's your building envelope right in here. And this was a design that they were done for just a single family.
And so if it were 4 units, what would be the location of building?
Well, the 4 units would have to be within the setback from Route 16 Whipple Street, Whipple Drive, and the setback, which is drawn in this red line here,
So this septic is just for 1 unit.
This was designed for 1 unit.
Yeah.
And here's the Dana place right here.
Yeah.
And we actually have a couple of buildings right in this area right here. So, our water comes in. So we're going to be able to connect the water and bring down an easement on water and on septic.
And you're saying there's enough area
Left for a building envelope to put 4 units. Yeah, not massive, big 4 units, but 4 units. And if you've ever been up in this area up on Whipple, just down here there are a pod of 4 real tall style, kind of funky design.
long and lean.
Yeah, they're right here.
Is it one of those for sale right now, or was it sold?
I don't know anything about those. Is there one for sale now?
Yeah,
Or is that's not up the other way towards the Mount Washington?
Cluster condos, isn't it?
Right.
They have a common.
Yeah, we're talking about the ones
Yeah.
to the north.
Yeah, all 4 together.
so it's a lot at the end after those 2 units, correct?
Before this.
For sale is to the south of the subject site we're talking about.
Yeah, no, this is the land in between the Dana place
Right. So
and the 4 units that are here. There are 4 clusters right here. This is the land in the middle.
that are on the west side of 16. Or the
Yes,
east side?
west
West
side.
side.
West side. So you go...
Here's the Ellis, the
Yeah.
Dana Place would sit over here. Route 16's out here.
Right.
I think Whipple
You,
Lane
16's
kind
out here like this.
comes into, so Route 16 is out here. So this is to the west of Route 16.
And there, and
and
there's
you go in there,
interstate-
Whipple, and you go by these two sort of funky
There's actually four
4 units?
units there, yeah,
Okay.
and this is just before those 4 units.
Oh, I thought it was just after. I'm sorry.
Chair recognizes.
As you pull into Whipple Drive, immediately to the left on the west side of Route 16, there's a lot for sale.
This is the lot.
This is the law we're discussing.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
This is the law we're discussing.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing, I'm confirming that there was a lot of land for sale, owned by two physicians. Unfortunately, the male physician passed away, but yes, there was a lot for sale. But I'm just confirming, I think, what you folks are saying, that's all.
So I'd like to have a discussion on the planning board if we could. But
The process here, do we just for the building inspector and building inspector?
I'm sorry, can you speak up? I can't.
I'm asking whether the process really would be that this question would come before the building inspector. The building inspector would either deny or approve a building permit. If it was denied based on the fact that the subdivision no longer complies, then, if you were then to propose a new subdivision, that would come before us. I'm questioning whether we would decide whether or not this building on this lot would be approved.
yeah, that's a good point. My impression was that if the plan is materially different, I think that's how it's described. If it's materially different from the original proposal, that it would then require being reapproved.
Correct, but
But if it's just simply deciding whether or not it meets the current regulations, that's not something that would come before the planning board, if I understand it correctly. Does anybody read it differently than I on that?
I know, I think you're right.
I just don't.
The attorney was really talking about a modification.
Right.
So it's not really clear to me. I guess I'd need to see the approvals that happened earlier that indicate that 4 units were permitted, if that's what you're looking for at this point, to see that. And if there's no modification, then I guess it is a question of the building inspector as to what extent it complies with current zoning.
But didn't it say in there that you had to start something within 5 years? And if you didn't, then bingo, it's
But
gone.
the attorney's letter from the municipal association indicated the approvals once given still stand, and within that 5-year period, if zoning changes, then that doesn't really matter. But beyond that 5-year period, if zoning changes, then it does matter.
It's only referencing the zoning changes. You can't retract an approval simply because they didn't build. Frank?
That's what I say. You approved the subdivision, which means there's a legal lot of land there. Well, what, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. What you can do with it depends on what the zoning ordinance says, which
Right.
is what the building inspector is responsible for.
Right.
And
Exactly.
It's not up to the planning board to interpret.
Exactly. So I think you're saying the same
I think so too.
thing. You're agreeing?
I'm agreeing that, and I think I'm agreeing with Scott, is that, unless you have a subdivision change in front of you, it's really up to the building inspector to decide what you can and cannot do.
So for me, then, the question might be about getting an easement so that the septic and water and so on would be off the land. I'm not sure how that works.
That's a building inspector question, though.
Okay.
I agree in that. Yeah.
My question goes way back, and that is the subdivision approval that he's talking about. Is that the original subdivision approval for the whole area?
Yeah, that's what
That's what I need to see
can't find
also.
those words.
That's what I'd need to see
It's on the
also.
declaration, I gave it to you.
I've been trying to
So,
listen and read
So
that.
you would need to go back to that original approval because that had a variety of areas in it that were approved. And my question would be, is in that approval, does this particular lot show as a separate lot?
Yeah, I mean, that's,
And
Yeah, it's a little unclear on,
may I approach?
yep, on what is area G.
Yeah, I don't have a plan. I should have brought the plan with me. I apologize.
I've got some plans here.
You have a big plan?
I may have something that would
I
apply.
remember the original
what would
plan
that
is,
In case you get,
Well, this is the septic
I put
more recently. If that applies to what you're looking for.
but I remember a very large paper with conceptual areas on it.
Would it be this, Richard? Is that what you're looking for?
No. I mean, it does show a lot, but there is a large plan. I left it on my desk.
And that's fine, because we would probably not want to
I
see that that
remember seeing the original plan.
Well, I've got the selections folder. There was nothing in the planning board folder.
Okay, if you read the first three lines here, this is area G.
I could not find a thing that referenced the
List
same
about
lot.
lots and
so is that an amendment to this?
Let's see, this is 2000. Would that be what we're looking
we go back to 72.
Yeah, even the selectmen's files don't seem to go back that far for a map. They go back with the paperwork. Yeah, that doesn't apply. So there's an amendment to the dedication of common areas. I don't know if that's what you're looking for. The covenants and restrictions.
Sarah,
Yeah.
are you asking whether or not the three lots on Whipple are separate legal lots? Okay.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Yeah,
It has
definitely.
to, because he's under contract.
Sarah, this map shows that at least.
But my question is, are these lots then subsequent to the original approval, or these lots, when were they created?
They were
Separate-
created in the original approval, which I have the declaration on the table. The declaration on the table also states that there is a dedication of open space. So the lot itself may only be 0.8 acres, but there's a dedication of open space that meets all requirements of all the land and data place that is probably common between, in different types of common ownership, but in common ownership between the individual owners of homes on the Dana Place PUD and the Dana Place Inn. So it was like the style back in the day. So you may have a lot of 20 acres, but there's a piece of land somewhere on that site that makes up the difference. But that's it. And that's in that paperwork I've left you.
So I guess what I'm thinking, unless somebody has a different perspective, that what we should be saying, Mr. Levine, is that this is not a planning board issue unless you are specifically going to be changing what you propose to do for the subdivision. And that you're going to be subject to whatever the zoning requirements are that have been established since the time that the original approval was made, and that that will be a requirement of the building inspector to ensure that you're meeting those requirements. And it would be his review or review of whomever he requires in order to ensure that you're meeting those.
I would request, in order to get a building permit, I need to draw plans, need to have some survey work done, need to draw some septic and some lines, easements, a lot of money. Forget the work, a lot of money needs to go in. All to be brought in and possibly be denied. I was looking for some clarification prior to that, and I don't know whether or not that is a clarification on the subdivision and how it stands with your town council. And again, this is a question for the building inspector. I'll ask him the same thing. Is this a question for town council to give an opinion that it can still be built as per the original deed, original declaration, with it meeting current zoning because of the declaration of open space of all the land that's not built on, just sitting there to be used as density. And I don't know if that question is more than the building inspector can answer and actually answer legally for the town.
And I would agree that it may be a town council question because in general terms, without getting into the details, it seems to honor the intent of our regulations in terms of having sufficient septic, having the green space, but if you were to bring this plan to us today, I don't think that we could approve septic via an easement on another lot, nor could we approve open space that's, again, a separate lot from, the one we're looking at.
And don't we have a conflict with our town council?
Yeah.
Well,
But we'd have to trace out the ownership because the common land would be attached to one of the developments there.
The common land, if you read the declaration and the dedication of open space, and it's actually the last page actually shows how much open space was dedicated towards this particular lot.
Okay.
And it's on the very last page. If you have it, the very last page.
This one?
No,
No, I got it.
Okay.
G cluster 1,
Exactly.
29,000 square feet.
That's existing.
So that's what we're looking at.
That's
Cluster
the piece
1,
that's sitting.
G1
G1, exactly, sir.
is this. Okay.
G1.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Is there anything built on this lot right now?
No, ma'am.
So the lot was created, but it has not been developed. Right. And you don't have understanding as to when this lot was created?
It was created in the original declaration in 1972, I'd say.
The last thing.
This one further than
Well, I think we have to, move it to town council or some council, some legal entity needs to,
I think it would be the town council advising the building inspector as to whether what has, what on this plan can be done, and then if we're
I think
denied.
we also need evidence as to what the original approval was.
Yeah, but again, the question is whether or not this is a planning board issue. And I don't believe, based on what we know, that it is a planning board issue at this point. What we're being presented is that this is going to adhere to the original subdivision approval with some changes made apparently for septic in order to accommodate that.
Changes made for septic is only to meet current septic requirements.
And that would be to do that, and that is the requirement for the subdivision approval, that you do meet current requirements. That is not something that the planning board has to go through and say, we've looked at it and it does do that. It's something that the building inspector is going to determine whether or not it actually meets the current requirement. The subdivision has already been approved, so that is our business, but it is not our business to reapprove unless you have a substantial modification to what you're planning on.
So my question to you, you're now telling me that I'm making a change into the original subdivision because the septic won't be on site. So I need to know whether or not that is a substantial change, that I'm going to get hauled back into this room one day because I made a substantial change, created an easement, and I'm disposing of my septic and bringing my water in from the Dana Place
And
property.
the answer to that is I cannot answer that question unless I have a formal proposal in front of me.
Okay.
As a board, this is an informal discussion. And based on where we're at right now, what we know right now, can't say. And
Is this your only copy of the,
I have plenty of everything.
okay, I'm just clipping it all together so
All
that
yours.
we can keep this information.
And I guess I'm uncertain as to your question
I may
around
have that sheet.
whether or not the change in septic would be considered to be a substantial change.
Substantial change.
It's not a change of use.
No, right.
And again, I think if you came back to us with essentially a new subdivision application, I'm not sure that we could approve that as the septic solution.
In my understanding from meeting with this board a year or two
You
ago,
could then take it to the ZBA and perhaps get it.
my understanding with this board about 2 years ago, when I came in with the idea of taking the 2 5-plexes that were approved on the Dana Place Inn property and building 10 individual cabins, you believe that was a change in use, and you stated that. And I
believe that's correct,
I believe
yes.
that's correct, and I do too. So I asked you then the same thing then on this lot. If somebody were to take 4 condos and create one house, a single family, large single family, would you consider that a change in use?
I believe so, because the reverse has come before us, or something that's been minimized. I mean, I think taking 4-unit condo approval and creating a single
family would be a change in use.
Change of use, but
Yeah.
certainly, less, sounds like it's more easily approved change than going in the reverse.
And in 2010, there was already an approval by the Department of Environmental Services for it to be a single home there. So I don't know if there was
Well, the
any...
subdivision didn't approve it, and the homeowners of the subdivision didn't approve the change in use. The environmental services might have, but that's 2 different things. I mean,
So there was no planning board action or whatever at that
not
time?
that I know of. It wasn't my property. I wasn't here on that, so I don't know.
I don't know either.
So, well, we have the septic plan that's there for the single family
Yeah.
was 2015.
Yeah, this was expiring in June of 2015, approved in 2010. I don't know if there's a different one that I'm not aware of.
Okay, so this plan, which is there, I don't know, is probably the second plan then?
Yeah,
You think it was done in 2010 and then re-upped in 2015?
That's okay.
Chair recognizes.
Thank you. I would just like to suggest that, based on the discussions I've heard, and I live up at the Dana Place Association, I'm a member of the so-called Dana Place Association, that I think Mr. Badger and other comments, that referring this to an attorney to town council, both for the Mr. Levine and the town's sake, is the appropriate action to take to clarify this, because I think when people look at the Dana Place Association properties, it's like total confusion. I'm just being blunt here. And in fairness, maybe not total, but
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
I
guys.
think you're taking the
Gentlemen.
authority from the building inspector. It's up to him to decide whether or not he needs help.
Gentlemen,
I'm sorry.
Well, whoever, the building, it's up to the town to decide, the building inspector or town council, but we want a clear decision here because Mr. Levine has, trying to do something here, and we just want to make sure, me, wants to make sure that what gets done is appropriate. And I think the discussion here leads to a lot of, questions. So whether it's the building inspector who seeks town council or town council who seeks the bill, whatever.
It
It's
does.
not a question of the planning board, that's my opinion.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Again, I think to reiterate, I don't believe this is a planning board issue at this point in time. I do believe you have a compliance requirement in order to do this build if it's to go forward. It's going to be the requirement of the building inspector who reports to the town council to notify them, the board of selectmen, of any issues that may arise as a part of the information that he receives, and that it's going to be, you have oversight entirely of what he does and what he approves, or doesn't approve. And so I'm going to pass the buck over to Dick, I think. Frank?
I'd add that if the building inspector denies the permit because he believes it doesn't comply with zoning, Mr. Levine is able to appeal that to the ZBA.
I agree with that.
By definition.
I will bring this to the building inspector right away.
Oh, thank you.
I'll get
It'd
this.
been nice if he was here tonight.
Well, I understand that
I
time.
told him I was going to say that on the record.
Time is always important in moving these things along, so
Thank you very much.
I will
Do you
do
know
that.
somebody on the board of selectmen?
I know someone on the select board.
Thank you for all the help.
You did have two questions, I believe. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. The second question. We bought the property from the Jennings family, and we sold it and bought it back a couple of years later. And there was a gentleman that owned the Dana Place Inn during that 2-year period who came into, I don't know what department, and requested to rebuild a house on the property that was to replicate, or not replicate, but to replace the Jennings home that had burned down. That building has been built. It is there, it's existing, we have used it, it was used as hotel rooms. It is within now the 75-foot buffer from the river. I don't like the building, it's not very pretty. I just don't like the building. I'm requesting, and again, I don't know whether or not this is your department or not, but I'm requesting to be able to tear that building down and replace that building on the lower section, the southern part of the property, and build the same amount of square footage, or maybe even less, as a single family, as that was replaced as on the lower section of the property.
Would that be out of the conservation district?
Be out of the conservation district, of course.
I think we're always amenable to a better situation.
That'd be excellent. Is that something then that we would, I would have a plot plan drawn up and presented to the board?
Yes.
Okay.
Not the planning board.
Not the planning board? Which board?
You just would submit that to the
The building inspector.
He's getting a lot of work, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I don't know, I read this stuff, it's my own personal interpretation, so I can't speak for it as the board. But generally, if you build something within an existing plot, in effect, your grandfather. As you say, we're looking to improve.
Yeah.
If you have a building, you're going to put a newer, better building on it than what was there. That's a better thing for the town.
Okay.
But you have to go through the hoops.
That's fine. That's
Right.
no problem.
There's some history of, in similar situations, of the building inspector turning it down because it doesn't comply with the zoning ordinance, but the ZBA granting it a variance just because of the overall improvement in the situation.
So,
But it's a judgment.
yeah, again, you have to give that caveat that past results are not,
Yeah, I understand.
Is the
A future performance.
I've seen that word someplace.
I mean,
is the existing structure non-conforming right now?
I don't know if it's not conforming, it's within the 75-foot setback from the river.
So that would be
That's, if that
not,
considered non-conforming, that's
Yeah.
considered non-conforming.
Yeah.
And where you're moved, where
It would
you
be definitely conforming, yeah. All right, thank you very
I
much.
hope we've confused you
No,
sufficiently.
excellent. Every time I come here, it's great.
Jim, could I ask you please to pass that notice around to the new
Do we
person who
have
came in?
any other comments from?
To actually pass it to the person behind you? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments from the public.
Peanut gallery.
We appreciate it. Okay. I think we've made our time up on the agenda.
Great.
And Betsy, would you like to describe what we're talking about regarding groundwater protection?
Sure, thanks. Well, a couple of months ago, Ann Pillion and Tom Gross came and spoke to us, they're board members at Upper Saco Valley Land Trust, and they asked for a date when we could get together and talk about water protection issues. And as I remember it, we as a board concluded that if we're going to talk about some aspects of water, we ought to deal with as many aspects of water as we could. So I've ordered a batch of flyers from the federal government and from the state government. Federal mostly about flooding, I think, and the state government about arsenic and radon and other such things found in our water. So we've got the date of June 27th reserved at the Whitney Center, and I'm posting these notices around. Please take them home and let friends know about them.
I think Joyce already brought one home.
Great. Because I think that many people are not aware of the fact that if you're taking a shower in an enclosed space where there may be radon in the water, you're breathing the radon. And I think that is something that...
Sure, we're going to attempt to protect our water from God, is that?
So people may not be aware of that, and if we bring it to people's attention, it's an expensive thing to address and try to fix, but it's the kind of thing that some people might feel is important to address. So if we bring it out to people, then so much the better. So we should also talk very briefly about the happening last Tuesday. Do you want
Can I stay on the water for just another minute?
to? Do you walk on the water?
Yeah,
Okay, go for it.
big feet. I went to a state, whatever, seminar down in Concord, and the opening talk was on arsenic, naturally occurring arsenic in the water, and that it's important to, one, have people test their own wells, not just a municipal water supply, but test their own wells for it, because I don't think it's a standard test. I don't think it comes up,
It doesn't.
just in the water test that you might send in, so you have to request it, but it would be a good one. As far as the radon, it does off-gas once you bubble it. That's how the bubblers, the mitigating, radon mitigators work in water is they bubble the water and the gas comes out. You vent that out and then the water is, I think they get it down to 90-something% radon free, so that's pretty good. Yes, it's a whole nother, whatever, $5,000 thing in your cellar that has to come on when you use the water, but we're all probably old enough that it's really not going to affect us. Radon is pretty slow acting. It's for the kids, though, that would grow up with constant exposure to radon. So
We found out that at our house, apparently EPA has not set the standard, but they were talking at one point about having a standard of no more than 2,000 picocuries per liter, I believe. And we had 31,000 in our place. And so we had it addressed with that $5,000 bubble up thing, and we now have something like 130 picocuries per liter.
Did it change the taste of the water?
No.
I would expect if anything, it would have improved
Did
it.
you say it changed to, it reduced it, or?
It reduced it tremendously. We had 31,000 picocuries per liter. We had 31,000 picocuries per liter, and now we have about 130 picocuries.
Not 130,000, 130
Yeah,
curie.
okay, I was trying to get the zeros.
It took it way, way down.
big drop.
It ruined the taste, though, I understand.
It didn't change the taste at all, as far as I can figure.
Yeah, now it tastes like bourbon.
Maybe not.
Not the same effect,
The
unfortunately.
planning board has
It's
a
not scotch,
sense
you got
of humor.
cheated.
I'm sorry, I can't resist things. I mean, you hand me a one-liner like that.
But not scotch.
Not scotch, bourbon.
Right, it's American. It's not Canadian, it's not Scotch.
Whiskey, I know.
So the major part that USFEL's interested in is how to encourage us to seek opportunities, ways that we can improve our groundwater or prevent it from going south, going worse, whatever.
A lot of it will be having a discussion with the places that we identify, and we will identify them, that are going to be potential polluters or, potential problem. Where's the oil spill going to happen? And, where are they handling chemicals? So, a lot of it to start with will be just making people aware.
Yep.
It's a problem. We'll try to do our best to mitigate it.
Well, I think you brought up that, like an oil tanker rolling on Route 16 and the town water supplies.
I brought it up at the state level,
Yeah.
and everybody just went,
Or I got my bottling machine all set up. I'll sell you water. Really cheap price.
Well, my understanding, though, is with radon, it's if you're drilling in granite,
Yes.
then you're more apt to have radon. And what I hear more of is arsenic, like Partridge Woods, a number of places they've had to do something about arsenic. But
So those are more from drilled wells, are you saying? I mean, arsenic is also from drilled wells. Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yeah, but Fran Lyons was saying that, and I can't remember what he was talking about in the water, whether it was arsenic or not, but he said they've made it even stricter as far as fewer parts per million, and it's just, at what point does it stop? You don't want to scare people.
Yep. Yep, I think all we can do is alert people to the possible issues, and they can decide what seems best for them.
You wanted to move on? Any further discussion?
Yes, I didn't think to put it on the agenda or to suggest that it be on the agenda, but I think the meeting on Tuesday is something to be commented on. I think it was really excellent. We had, I think, at one point I counted 63 people, I think.
Everybody seemed very engaged and
Yeah.
doing quite well.
I guessed about 60 people, and I didn't count specifically.
Yes.
I blocked in.
And I didn't count me either.
I block in crowds, and I'd said 60 to 70.
And so we've also done, I think since the last meeting, some more interviews as well. And I'd say at this stage, the one thing that we're likely to work on, not the only thing, but the one specific thing that we're likely to work on, assuming that we have some legal basis for it, is something to address short-term rental. That, to perhaps not eliminate it in Jackson, but to constrain it in some fashion.
It has to be regulated statewide. I mean, it's a problem everywhere.
But that seems to be sort of the low-hanging fruit, if it's possible, in terms of having some immediate effect, in terms of having at least rental opportunities. And it's probably something that would gain the least amount of opposition, if we're doing a regulatory change, as opposed to, changing
Unless you're-
frontage or something like
Unless
that.
you're one of the, how many are we up to now with the Airbnb?
I've heard over 160, I don't know.
In Jackson?
Yeah, I don't know if that's
Well,
really correct.
I went onto the site, I only saw 81 listings, so I don't know that there are 160.
And that may be, given a whole year, 81 at this time, 42 at that time, 112 at that time.
It's not just Airbnb. There's
No, I know there's VRBO.
Right.
My house was listed on VRBO at one time as a scam, so I'm familiar with them.
Yeah, I remember renting that out. I had a wonderful weekend there.
Thank you very much.
We trashed the place.
Well,
And of course,
I thought the whole evening was great. Who's going to correlate the cards that were filled out?
the consultant resilience plan.
They'll do that.
Yeah, thank God that's why we pay them so
Right. Well, I'll be real interested to see what comes
The
out.
hours of interviews that Liz had to go through, that there alone probably is worth.
What's the next step? I mean, there's got to be a follow-up step, I would think.
several.
And, what is it?
And my understanding, but you can certainly weigh in, is that we're going to take all of the commentary, what we from the interviews, from the forum, from the surveys, and gain from that some sense of direction, desired direction by the town, and then start looking at what tools we can use to move down that path.
But, it seems to me that the people that were there are and versus the people that were not there. The people that were not there were the not in my backyard people.
Right. They were in the survey, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I mean,
they do that online.
The not in my backyard people are the, like I come up here over Christmas vacation and 4th of July and that's it. So, I think just-
In the way we're,
but they don't vote.
in the way we're trying to, the messaging that we're using, which is really, the real focus of this, is that it's not so much to provide housing to the people that need it. It's about creating the community that we want to live in, and who do we want to promote coming into the community. And so, at this point, we've identified that we have a rapidly declining population of children, which suggests that we also have a rapidly declining population of young families. We also know that, when you reach a certain age, there is no senior housing in Jackson, and so we're losing people beyond a certain age. And so we're really looking at the age demographics and trying to, essentially backfill the segments that were, that are disappearing. So it's really more about what we're doing for ourselves as opposed to what we're doing for someone that doesn't live here yet. There's a trust in Jackson Hole, and they sort of come after it in the same way, in the sense that the way this trust works, they acquire property, either through donations of either financial donations or property donations. If the property has a structure on it, great. If it doesn't, they may develop that. But then they sell these properties through a lottery. But to apply to be in the lottery, you first have to have been in town for at least 3 years, and then you have to demonstrate that your plan is to become not a permanent resident, a long-term resident of town, that you're going to become a member of the community. And I believe there's even some degree of showing that you're really going to become part of the community, that you're going to bring something to the community. And so, again, they're really looking at it as what kind of community do we want to live in? How do we create that community?
Now, is this a reduced cost housing?
It could be in some sense, yes.
And if it
For
was,
example, the segment that the segment that probably Jackson is losing the fastest, children and young families, it's sort of the same thing.
well, the whole valley is.
Right, and that's what's in sharpest decline, and it's going to be the biggest challenge for Jackson to address, given our property values and everything else. And so, to provide a property to a young family in Jackson is going to require offering it at something below what is typically market value in Jackson. How we do that, we don't know.
And then the future, when they go to sell it, they'd have to sell it.
It can work different ways. The one in Jackson Hole, they don't put that stricture on. Once you own the property, you own the property. Your style of living goes up. It's your property at that point. So I think they feel they can continue to sort of feed properties into the town, to keep it going. Jackson Hole is a much different scale than we are. Their median property value or home value is $1 million, which both puts them in a position where they have even a greater problem than we do. But on the other hand, the financial resources to fund something like this trust are also quite a bit beyond Jackson probably.
But it's only the cost of property in Jackson and in the valley, but it's also job opportunities. I mean, we educate these kids very well in Jackson. You send them off to college, they're not going to come back and work in Storyland.
Right. And that is the other side of the coin. We don't have good jobs. We have a ton of hospitality and service jobs. But,
Did we shoot for Amazon in North Carolina?
But on the other hand, we're looking at Jackson being the oldest community and the oldest county and the second oldest.
Speak for yourself, Bill.
And I am speaking for myself. Thank you very much, because I'm greater than the average age for any of those measures.
So,
and I think the other group that's also we're losing fairly rapidly are 80-plus people. I think we're losing on the high end and we're losing on the low end because people, when they get to a certain age, don't have adequate health care alternatives in the valley.
I mean, what it comes down to is, do we want a community that is made up exclusively of us here?
I wouldn't want to live with it.
Do we want a
I don't want to
community
live with
whose
myself.
only demographic is represented in this room right
There's
here?
plenty.
Because that's
That makes me feel younger, thank you.
I thought that Ed Butler's comments about do not leave the old people behind was very, very apt.
right. And that part of it may not be an affordable issue. That may be just somehow attracting a developer that would put in some senior housing.
Or we talked one group of multi-generational housing.
Yes.
Right.
And something like Ann
Comes
Peterson's
in that group.
development is great like that. If you talk to Barbara Terrio, she loves the fact that you can get a jar open for her, by a neighbor. Or someone who's has a young child and needs a babysitter at a moment's notice. Having that diversity of age within a neighborhood, along within a town.
Well, as we've separated from our nuclear families, it is good to have the diversity in age in a community so that kids do get used to, talking with older people and helping them and understanding. So, yeah.
But we must
Go ahead.
we must have a certain number of young people moving in, because the principal at one of the meetings said that there would be 10 students in preschool.
Well, and they come in, and if you look at the chart of the school population over the past 25 years, it bounces up and down quite dramatically. But for the first 10 to 12 years of that 25, it bounces up and down around a pretty flat trend line. When you hit it, that 12, 13, 14, 15 year, it's still bouncing up and down, but it's headed very clearly downward. And
Public comment?
And yeah, I was just going to comment, one of the frustrating things I think for the town is, you know, my wife and I think about, we're 71 and 68, is healthcare, as
Right.
one of you folks mentioned, and that's something the town can't control.
Right.
You know, the perception of healthcare for someone like myself and my wife, whatever it is, the town can't control that. But yet, at our age and maybe a little bit younger, that's for some people like us, that's a significant factor.
And there are some
Just a
options.
comment.
The town owns some land right here, and some people lately have been talking about, you know, could we behind the library, before it gets very steep back there, put in, you know, maybe 2 rows of houses, apartments kind of thing, but really houses that would be, you know, you might drive up to the first level and then drive beyond to the second level, so they wouldn't be stacked one on top of the other. They could be 1-floor units. Could we put in 8 or 12 or so homes like that, and maybe have a place where a nurse could come in 1 or 2 days a week or something like that? Would the town vote for something like that? Maybe. And so one of the advantages, I think, for getting this consultant is that firm is going to come up with some ideas that'll be something we wouldn't have thought of maybe, or that solutions, you know, that are tried in another town that might apply here. So that's one thing. And the other thing that I really liked about the end of that meeting was Pete Benson's comment about the fact that, well, he thought it was in the late 90s, but as it turns out, it was 2002 and 2004 when we met and talked about the fact that there wasn't good communication. We didn't know what was going on at the selectmen's meetings, and there was no recycling plan, and we didn't have a place for the kids to play basketball, and we didn't have a library that had enough books in it and space for people to be able to use it, and all these things that were the big problems. And what, you know, barely 10 or 12 years later, we've got those solutions made. Not that they can't be improved and so on, but we've accomplished a whole lot. And so the fact that it seems now impossible to create maybe a senior citizen complex or a place where younger people would be happy living in a more communal setting where there would be babysitting from friends next door and so on, all of it may seem impossible now, but it's not. We just need to be open to consider.
Well, and I would just like to add, not only from my age, but I would love to live next to a library, but to bring younger people in with kids. It almost brings tears to my eye. You know, you have to have that part too to invigorate. I mean, people our age in this room like to see young kids, right?
It's a lot what
And you
Scott
have
says
to
about
make it
community.
to be affordable for them somehow. So it's a whole spectrum.
It is. It's a community.
And what Pete Benson said that was great was that, you know, you have something that looks impossible in front of you, like all these other needs did. But once you do one thing, then there's a domino effect, and the next thing is easier, and then the third thing is even easier, and it just, you know, once you get it started, you know, you're surprised at how much.
Next thing you know, you're in the New York Times.
Could be, and I think the critical step is identifying what things you want.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you want,
That's the start.
if you don't know what you want, you can't
You're not gonna
accomplish
get
it.
it.
You never get there.
Rolling Stones, I think.
Can't always get it.
Well, something like that.
And you may not be able to get some of the things, but my goodness, if we don't know what it is we'd like to be doing, then I don't know how we can start.
Planning for it.
You can't get to where you want to go unless you want to know where you want to go.
And so presumably that's our business. We're the planning board. We're supposed to
No,
be
no,
starting
sometimes
on
where I want to go wasn't where I was headed in the first place.
Life changes.
Dick, I saw you reach for your hat, and I know what that means.
Yes, any other?
No,
Any other?
Giving us
so I
some.
react to lighting So I can tell my eyes are starting to water, so I was going to put my hat on just to keep the... But it is not a signal that we're there. It's when
I think it's a great signal.
when I light up the cigar, that's when we really know it's over.
When it comes out.
Just a little comment, Bill, thank you for leading us through, and actually, all of you folks that know what's going on.
That's an assumption.
Well, to me, this whole thing with Mr. Levine was, I didn't understand it, but I thought you led us through the maze very well, so I congratulate you.
You are truly a diplomat.
Thank you.
You did it very well.
But right from the beginning, you should have just cut him off, is what I learned. No, you did a good job.
It was just too much to take in.
I don't know if I'm allowed to speak to that, because the public comment may be over with, but can I?
Please.
I had to work, so I couldn't get here in time, but I live at 9 Whipple, and so I'm literally abutting that lot. And I knew he had it under contract because he was walking his dog down the road, and I didn't know who he was a couple of weeks ago, and he introduced himself and said, I own the damn place. And then told me that he was planning to put buildings up there, and so I just kind of went, well, leave a couple of trees, okay, and it's hard when you're a developer. I'm like, okay, and so Bruce Carr from the Dana Place Association sent an email around to the members saying it was going to be on the agenda tonight, so I was very interested, but he told me that it has to be the building inspector, that you guys don't really have a say.
It does. We are on videotape, so you can always look at the videotape if you want to cut back to that. But bottom line is that we needed to let him know that we aren't really the board that needs to be talking to him right now, or him to us, unless he has something substantially different.
Did he present?
No, in fact, because it was not a public hearing.
Okay.
We can only talk reasonably informally, and it's a conversation rather than a direction, if you will. And what he was asking was, do I have to go back to this board? And I think what we described to him was, yes, if you make substantial changes. No, if you don't. And to be honest, I don't know if he's making substantial changes or not. And we would not know that without him having a formal engineering plot plan done that we would be able to review. Now, if I understand it correctly, he needs to have that done. He needs to work with the building inspector. The building inspector will work with the Board of Selectmen to review that. If it's considered to be a substantial change, then he would need to go through the whole process again for approval.
But, he hasn't even bought it yet. He's just has it on his contract.
Exactly. And so it's his right to come to us and ask some general questions and for us to give him some general direction, but nothing more at this point. It's not a legal kind of thing at this point. We didn't really tell him anything that he couldn't read from the materials that are available on the website for the planning board recommendations. But we did tell him that, okay, you change what you're doing, you're going to have to come see us. If you don't, you're going to have to go through the building inspector process, and that's really regulated by the Board of Selectmen.
And if I may interject, it sounded like in conformance with what state regulations, the building inspector is familiar with, for lack of
He's familiar with the state requirements, and he's also familiar with the requirements of the town.
Yeah.
So it's up to him to do his job. I think I said that correctly. I've got more people in this room who know more about this than I do.
Nonsense.
You're stating, because what it is, developers like to get the answer. Give me the yes answer, and then I'll put the money into the engineering. So, yeah, which I understand. I mean, it is a lot of money, but you have to get an engineer and see if they can now create a septic system that works for that idea. Or maybe they can only put up a single-family house there with its own septic system and water and driveway. So, that's it comes down to that. What will the state approve, and what will our zoning ordinances approve in the modern era? I mean, we have to, we've moved along.
So there is a well, we do have a well back there, could he?
I saw that on the plat.
So he could?
That's well for service in your house or?
He probably can't tag into that.
He's talking about tapping in to the well at the Dana place, not the well that.
At the Whipple?
That serves the 4-unit cluster.
That's down.
That, I don't think he can go into that.
Frank, could you?
Can your agreement when you built the well, they extend
that's a
just,
fair one.
I know, but did it just extend to existing cluster units, or did it extend to also the owner of One Whipple?
I don't know.
So he might be able, because.
Yeah, he might be because of the original.
Anyway, all of it has to get researched. See what
There's a lot of work to be done
current era
before he
will
can
allow.
move forward.
And when he goes to when and if he goes to the building inspector, would that be public info or?
It does not need to be public info, I
It's not a
believe.
public hearing, but it's public
Would he
information.
have to file something?
He would have to file something. I don't know the entire process, but yes, the Board of Selectmen have to review any building process that occurs, and they have to, I believe, approve it. Is that not correct? Or
Yes.
if there's a question of
The
variance.
building inspector is given that power. He makes the decision, and he is our advisor.
So he brings his report to the board.
But he does bring the report to the board.
And they have to-
We try not,
You have to
we
approve it.
try not to micromanage
Frank?
what he does.
Isn't that mostly after the fact? That, I mean, he brings.
Yes, he brings us the approved.
Well, because he has that authority. Now, to really get to your question, though, the list of approvals are listed in the selectmen's minutes each every 2 years. So you can see whether or not he's applied.
And Dick mentioned earlier, perhaps you weren't here at that time, that he was going to talk with the building inspector about the issue and make sure that the building inspector understood whatever we know about it.
We've already been talking about it some.
Go
Do
ahead.
you folks talk to the building inspector?
We don't.
I do.
You don't?
The board, again, it's not our purview.
Entity.
They talk to me, I go to the building inspector. I'm the selectmen's
So
representative.
there's some communication.
And sometimes I send him a question, and he responds on that. He's very helpful.
Okay, just.
But it's not our purview. I mean,
No,
it really is
I
not. We, obviously, having a member of the Board of Selectmen on our board
Okay, I see.
does help an awful lot,
I see,
especially when he's
okay.
here.
You've answered my question.
When he shows up.
Especially when he's here. Now, speaking of showing up, I believe I heard a motion.
One other thing.
Second,
So we meet Thursdays. Now, why do we meet Thursdays? Because selectmen used to meet Thursdays, correct? So I'm guessing that we meet at 7 o'clock because the selectmen meet at 4. They could have gone on to 6. Is there any reason that we can't change the time from 7 to, say, 5?
Yeah, I'd like to have people who work be able to come to this meeting.
Well, I work. I don't do much.
I would like to have people who work be able to come to this meeting.
All right.
there's always a discussion of what time of day to have
Okay.
and how often any meeting. So we just try to get to a happy medium. You know, we do now, the selectmen's meeting is at 3:30.
3:30.
And so far, that's been working pretty well. We have, you know, a limited turnout. It's not that interesting, I realize. But, you know, business gets done. So I think that's really what we're after, is get the business done.
Well, I'm talking about this meeting moving into 5, and you say no.
Do you
Yeah.
think 5 is too early for people to work?
That's not
I
bad.
think so, yeah. How do you get out of your work at 5 and get here at 5? Especially when you have 45-minute commutes.
Planning board has met the second Thursday of the month for the last, at least 30 years.
I don't mind the second Thursday, I'm just wondering whether it could be earlier, that's all.
Can I offer a comment?
Please.
Not to argue against you, but unlike the selectmen, I suppose, this board has public hearings where you are welcome comments from abutters or other interested parties, as does the ZBA. And I think even more than the selectmen, we want to make sure that this board, the planning board, it makes it available for people who work and might not get out of work till 5:30 in Conway or 6 to be able to be here.
Oh, that's fine,
So-
just asking the question.
And the flip side of that is that unless it gets unwieldy, I prefer to have the ability for public comment and public sharing, because one of the things that I've learned is that oftentimes the people sitting in those chairs know a hell of a lot more than people sitting in these chairs.
But we think we do.
And it's important to listen. So if we're not listening, then we're not doing our job well. So thank you for coming this evening. I hear that motion yet.
I'd like to make a motion.
And second, all in favor?
All right.
We're done. Thank you.